You know what? I don't know who's watching this right now, but just for fun, for me, and for the purpose of not making this be a mute event, and since it will be recorded and I might be able to use this later, I'm just going to share what I actually see on Facebook groups, like the kinds of questions I see asked on certain Facebook groups, and just do a sort of freestyle run through of the kinds of questions that are asked and the answers I have, and also just kind of comparing the kinds of answers I would give and the ones that you see on the so I was just on Home Bicycle Mechanics Facebook group, 134,000 members, and one question here from Austin Valencia is, how can you tell if your fork is bent? And it's actually a kind of interesting issue. I'm wondering why he's actually asking the question. There's 5 comments. Let's see if any of them are. A lot of people have a nice little snide way of being in the comments. It's actually kind of difficult for me to read through them sometimes. The first one I saw is, well, the question is, how can you tell if your fork is bent? And the person says, if you're wondering, it is. You know, haha, I guess. That's not really helpful. It's also not really true. If you're wondering it is, it might be straight. Maybe your tire is weird. Maybe you forgot to put the springs in your quick release properly, and you made your wheel go crooked. So I don't know. The next answer, you'll go round and round in circles. Okay. And then next comment, when you can't twist spaghetti in the prongs. So far everyone's, here's another one. Wheel sits crooked or pulls when riding. Hey, there's a good one. Yeah, it could sit crooked. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, you'll see it offset to one side or the other. The only weird thing about that is I've actually seen forks that are technically straight and they are also they look like they're crooked. So without a proper gauge, it's the answer I gave is it's really hard. It can go both ways. It's actually easy and difficult. And the easy way to tell is the no hands test. You ride with no hands, and if you have to lean your bike to the left or the right just to go in a straight line, and you didn't have to do that before, it's likely bent. Meaning, if you didn't have to do that before and you're wondering if it's the fork, maybe, yeah, you did bend your fork. But, you know, it still could be the frame itself. It still could be something else, but that's a clue. All things equal, all things, you know, nothing's changed. You haven't, again, the quick release thing, sometimes people take their quick releases out. Let me see if I can find you. Let's see. Got a quick release here. This is actually a rear, but this is a pretty common issue. People take their front wheel out and then they, you know, pack it in their car, and then they put their quick release back in, but they put these springs in the wrong orientation. So normally you want to put the spring in like that on one side. You want them pointing to the middle. But sometimes people throw both of them on top of each other like this, and then they forget. There we go. You can see that. And then these get jammed in the dropout, and then the wheel sits crooked, and all of a sudden their fork's crooked, but it's not their fork, it's just their wheel. Or they stick them in backwards. This is a pretty common one. Actually, even more common. They put them both on, but they slide the whole thing on, and it jams both springs on one side of the hub. And that's another issue. So anyway, that's another little thing to check. So what's another question? Sticking with home bike mechanics. Rear brake hydraulic leaking piston. Buy a new caliper. Not leaking much. Slight residue. Making the inner pad dirty. The other pad not that bad. Cleaned with alcohol. Road test next. Shimano brake system. Okay, that sounds like an SOS signal from outer space. I don't even know what he's asking. But sounds like he's working it out. Not really a question. Let's see. Bought a used bike. It has a SRAM 11-speed cassette on a Shimano drivetrain. I understand the two are technically compatible, but is it just as good as an all Shimano drivetrain? Would you switch to a Shimano cassette? Personally, I feel like it's all the same. I would run a SRAM chain on a SRAM cassette ideally, or a Shimano chain on a Shimano cassette ideally, but I don't know. That's sort of case by case, I'd say, and case by case also because different people care in different ways. Some people don't, as long as the shift's made. Some people are really connected to the nuance of just how smoothly it transitions. Some people shift it under high pressure, some people don't. So really kind of a case by case whether that's necessary or not. Another question, apologies for the stupid basic question, what household cleaners work best on getting chain grease off your hands? I know shop soaps work best, but what if it's not available? I already have an answer to this. Asking for a friend who just changed their rear inner tube on a fixie. Okay, I'm gonna run inside the house really quick and grab some tub of towels because I left it in the kitchen. I was actually, the thing I'm about to grab, the tub of towels, is like the best hand cleaning, shop, keeping your shop clean, keeping your parts clean. It's the best stuff. Tub of towels. I think I borrowed some from my mother-in-law, or she gave me some, and holy cow, I wish I had had these my whole bike career. I actually have them inside the house or in the kitchen because I was cleaning out the vents in the hood of the oven or the stove, and there was just so much oil like all over everything, and I really didn't want to try to throw everything into detergent in the sink. It's really bulky cleaning all that stuff from the hood. So I just started wiping it down with tub of towels. So I'm breaking down very baked or cooked in oil, and it does a good job of taking it out. I actually had to take a spatula and just scrape like half a millimeter of oil film off of everything, but tub of towels, I'm not even gonna go get it. Just go check it out. It's like a bottle or a yellow like can of towels. Super good. Has anyone ever cut a carbon steer tube? My large Heller has a high seat. It's the only thing stopping me from feeling comfortable. Okay. Guys, just trying to cut down this carbon seat tube. Kind of like cutting carbon anything else. I'd recommend wrapping a piece of tape around the part you're going to cut, like masking tape, and then using a really good blade. I prefer like a 36 tooth fine tooth blade and just go real easy. Like, I mean, don't try to force the teeth through. I mean, it's hard to force 36 teeth per inch through. They're just not as raspy. That's why you use them. So it's kind of like a it's not quite like grinding, but it's not gonna splinter like a 24 tooth blade. So yeah, just take it easy. When you get right to the end, I recommend kind of pulling up like the part of the steer that's about to pop off. I don't have any extra steer tube lying around. but make sure it doesn't dangle. Like, make sure to hold it firmly so that it doesn't, you don't break off the last few threads. Just make sure you cut through them as um, gently as you did the rest of the threads. Let's see. So I'm gonna keep going on these other questions, and maybe I'll switch over to another group. One of my other favorite groups is the 26-inch conversions. It's like the 26-inch to gravel conversions group. That there's like a lot of cool just bikes in there and just interesting solutions. But I have no idea what people want to know, so I'm just gonna keep going on some of these here. One person says, I've got an 11-speed Shimano cassette. I've ridden it in 95% dry weather using immersive wax on my chain. I've changed my... What's immersive wax? Is that Silka? No. I don't know. I've changed my chain religiously at 0.5 to 0.7 wear. So those are the wear indicators on a standard, Shimano chain checker. And it says, I'm coming up to needing chain number 3 after about 8,500 miles. Dang. Do I really need to follow the received wisdom, in quotes, of changing my cassette every 2 to 3 chains? If not, when should cassette be changed? And he gives an update. The two rides, like with 2 hyphen rides, the 2 rides worth of surface muck and oxidation, normal and waxed systems in winter seems to have triggered a few folks. Added an additional photo after 15 minutes. Wash and wipe. So this poor guy posted it, but then everyone was giving him grief, so he had to go clean it to feel comfortable leaving his post up. Oh man, Facebook comments. So yeah, I actually don't have a solid I still don't have a solid like how many chains worth before you change your cassette, because it's too dependent on what you're actually doing. The main thing I go with is the using the chain checker, and if you change your chain and you keep changing it at the 0.7 mark, there will come a time, I should say this. So yeah, let's say you've changed 3 chains all right at the 0.7 wear. I'd say that's doing such a good job of keeping a chain healthy. But it also depends on what kind of grit you had on there while it was happening. And so what the question really is how do I tell if my cogs are worn out? And I think Roll-Off makes a tool. I'll try to dig up more info on this. Maybe I'll post it. But Roll-Off makes a cog checker tool. So you can do that. But why I kind of don't know about that, like it's never a tool I've actually relied on. What I do rely on is the sound and the feeling when you're riding it. So if you put a new chain on and it feels smooth in some gears and maybe a little rumbly in the others, it's those rumbly gears that are probably a little bit worn out. And it's not that even you need to change the whole cassette. Oftentimes the cogs are worn at different they wear at different rates, and so you can make the decision to buy an individual cog, but I know that's really an uncommon thing to do, and so you may just choose to keep riding as long as you can. And the worst case scenario is it'll start to kind of skip or pop, and it's not dangerous, it's just annoying. But you can get dangerous if you keep at it. But once you get to that point, it's pretty clear you need to change your cassette. So I just use my senses on that one, meaning like listen to it. Does it sound rumbly? Does it feel rumbly? When you're in the, you can put a little sometimes you can put your rear brake on when the bike's in the stand. Let's see here. if you squeeze the brake up front and pedal it through, that little extra resistance of squeezing your brake can transfer some of that extra rumble to your the sensation in your fingers, so you can kind of tell. But honestly, nothing beats just hopping on the bike and riding it for a bit, and feeling it and listening to it. That's how I would think of it anyway. So what I would tell this guy, yeah, that's what I tell this guy. But sometimes I don't even comment because it just takes too long to explain that. It's really hard to explain in the comments. There are 72 comments. Probably a good quarter of them are telling him he needs to get clean his drivetrain or something. But that's sometimes why I just don't have it in me to comment in the forums. Okay, let's see here. Let's move on. Actually, why don't I'm going to skip over to 26-inch gravel bike. Oh, it's called gravel bike conversion from old 26er MTBs. And this guy says, what's considered the holy grail of 90s frames to build up? I've got a line on a Hard Rock Ultra for a good price, and this might be my next project. I already know there's no holy grail. The holy grail will be whatever the person who thinks there's a holy grail, that's the holy grail, whatever you think it is. There's what pops to mind is the GT owners. I feel like the GT owners are like a bit of a minor religion. GT triple triangle 90s people. My first mountain bike was a GT. It got me into it. I like the triple triangle, but I find it to be such an interesting. The GT, let me just talk about the GT triple triangle for a minute, since nobody's asking any questions and to interrupt me on this one. But I think it's an interesting thing, because if you don't know what the GT triple triangle is, it's basically where the seat stays connected to the top tube and to the C tube, and it makes a very rigid, super rigid frame. And I know that a lot of track riders like that. I think maybe the 90s, maybe 2000s, I think GT was sponsoring the Olympic track team. And, that was a way to make an aluminum bike or a steel bike ultra stiff. And they like that for power transfer. But now we're in the age of suppleness and, supple tires, larger tires, vertical compliance. It's just a weird sort of standard to hold both of them, like the stiff frame and supple tires. So they look cool, though. I mean, I'm not gonna argue that. I think they look pretty cool, but they also shrink the triangle room in the front triangle here. So if you like to put things in there like water bottles or a bag, or you like to just shoulder it, sometimes I look at the triple triangle and I just feel like it's not worth it. Except if you want to make it look a certain way, and then there's only one way to make it look like that. And so anyway, Hard Rock, I think I'd rather have a Hard Rock Ultra. People go for Hard Rocks from, Specialized. Mainly it's the paint jobs. I mean, they're good bikes, but it's the paint jobs. Specialized had some quintessential of the times paint jobs, and everyone's kind of digging retro 90s retro. I mean, 90s, it seems like people have been digging 90s forever. When are we gonna stop being into the 80s and 90s? Maybe it has stopped. Maybe it's stopping. That's another question. Can anyone recommend a good 26-inch tire for mixed surfaces, road and some off-road, first one that comes to my mind is Continental. Um, let's see. Yeah, double fighters. Conti double fighters. It's like the best budget like gravel tread. I don't even want to talk about the other ones. There are other ones. There's always another one, but that one's really good. The thing about 26-inch gravel tires though is they're like 2.3, what is it? Is it 2.0 wide? They're wide. And what are you putting on? You're putting on an old mountain bike, and there's this thing about like on a gravel bike when you're using a gravel tread, you're it's sort of got a built-in regulator on your speed. Like for one, it's rigid. Two, it's skinny. Like the tires are skinny. It's like you're running a 45, maybe a 50 max. But if you're running a mountain bike, I think there's a tendency to be able to rip through like gnarlier terrain a little bit quicker, to the point where I think you can actually get to that drift zone quicker too. Meaning there's sort of a point where I feel like the gravel tread doesn't work with 26-inch or large tires. I shouldn't say it doesn't work, but there's a point where I feel like just getting a regular mountain bike tire, if you're going to be off-road, just makes sense. So really the question is, it's about the in-between points, like when you're riding to the trail, riding along like flat section or a paved section, and you're wanting to remove the middle knobs. But when it comes to the side knobs, I kind of feel like if you're going to run a 2.0 tire, you might as well have some knobs, because you're going to be able to get to that point where you'll need them. Whereas like when you're riding gravel, you're like on a gravel bike, you're not trying to like rip around a hairpin turn at like 30 miles an hour. And maybe if you're really good you can, but then it's not even about the knobbies, it's about you being such an awesome bike handler. So what's another thing? Let's see some pictures of bikes. Oh, bikes with colored tires. What do you think of colored tires? I don't know. I kind of like colored tires. You know what tires I feel like need to come back? Oh my gosh, I should tell. This is one for Rivendell. The what was it called again? I can't believe I'm spacing on the name right now. The Speed Blend. Oh my gosh, that would be super cool. I don't know if you remember Pan Racer Speed Blend tires that I think Grant from Rivendell got going many years back. It was like alternating colors of like green, yellow, pink, blue, all the way around just one side of the tire, and the other side was like tan wall. I just think that would be really fun. I think the idea was when you watched all the colors blend together, when the wheel was spinning, it would create some weird effect. Honestly, I don't think it ever created a very weird effect. I just liked the way it looked when they were all still, and it was just like each panel of a different color. Kind of just weird, and I liked it. But with tires being so much bigger now, those patches of color would be even bigger, and I just think it'd be fun. And who knows, I'd probably only like it for like a few days. No, I like things when they're not popular, I admit it. Man, there's some really cool 26-inch to gravel conversions here. There's one here by a guy named Bozidar Bozkov. I love how there's such an international following on this page. Let's take a real quick count of how many people are in this group. 23,000 geeks by looking at this page. And as I'm staring at these, I want to, I might as well, I was just, might as well put in a plug for Henry Wildberry's video on, shoot, where'd it go? He built up a, how do I say this? Is it a GTB? Or no, it's a DTB, sorry. I'm like, what the heck's a DTB? It's not a mountain bike, is it a Downton? What's a Downton bike? I couldn't figure out what DTB meant, but basically it's a dirt touring bike. And he built one for himself and one for Miss Cools, his partner. And they're really basically like a large tire drop bar off-road bike for touring. You know, sometimes you need more than 42 or a 650 by 48, and so they made these capable of like a 2.3 tire. And what was I? Oh yeah, his whole thing was stem angle. Like, see this stem right here? Lift it up here. That's kind of follows the line of the tube, but take another stem and you can get the bars higher by pitching the stem up or getting a steep rise to the stem. So, and he calls it the excited look. And he was basically like, the idea was like, this is interesting because he didn't like it before and he didn't like the look, and now he's kind of growing to accept it. And I think that's an interesting thing when after some time, if you're going for a certain function, like, and function can be a fit, feel, ergonomics, things like that, a certain look may grow on us because we know it would fill a function, and then it kind of becomes a matter of making the optimizing the look to meet that function. And so I personally don't think it ever looks good to do that, but I also think it doesn't look good when people are uncomfortable and don't adjust their bikes accordingly because they want them to look like pro or whatever. That's also not a good look either. So between the two, I say I'm much more of a go for function first. And I think it's a neat video. He switched also to a triple version of, what I do with them. He took these off, these campy shifters off of his dirt touring bike, and he put these kinds of shifters on in a 2x3. And these things are pretty cool. I like the shape. They're not my first choice. Not my first choice for, like, but I don't have a good reason. I think it's like it's mostly an aesthetic thing. How do you say say aesthetic thing 3 times that? So make sure I don't lose this clamp. I got these because they were super cheap, and I really kind of like having a collection of brifters to reference in terms of like sort of tracking the evolution of their shapes and their reaches. And this one came out, I think, around 2009. This shape. First in the Dura-Ace. Oh, turning on their AC next door. Sorry if the fans are going off, but it just had it was I think a better shape in a lot of ways. Oh, here we go. better shape in a lot of ways than their previous model. I have like no, the previous model was the one with the external cable routing, and I have none of those. I like don't have any interest in them. I don't like it's like I like the function of it, but if I'm gonna have them, I like running the cables under the tape. Um, I love having a cleaner handlebar look. So anyway, when they came out with these, I liked them because of the internal routing, but I didn't like, there was some, I don't know how to say it, there was just too many angles and bulbs and stuff. It wasn't smooth. And I think they improved upon that by the time they got to the current day with these guys. So these are just 8-speed Claris, or I'm sorry, yeah, these are Claris 8-speed, which is based off of the 11-speed models. But you can see that it's a lot smoother and more, I don't know, it's just not as angular and stuff. But, and even this, but the thing is, this shifter doesn't feel much better than this one when it comes to the ergonomics. I think the best feeling ones that Shimano makes are their electronic hoods, and you know, their mechanical ones are pretty comfortable, but I still feel like I think of it as like the squish clay test. If you imagine just squishing clay in your hand and imagining where the clay would ooze into it, it would ooze into the sort of the pocket here of the palm of your hand, and it would, I don't know, there's certain places where it would end up, where the blade of the lever would end up, and Shimano never seems to feel like it does that for my hand. And I have a large hand, I don't know if that's part of it, but I think they look pretty good. They're a little bulky looking if you ask me, but I mean, one of the reasons I still like, one of the reasons I still love the Campy shifter is when I put my hand on there, things end up a lot closer to where my palm and my hand actually is. Even this whole idea that I'm trying to I'm looking at the camera of it, it flips backwards and my mirrors backwards to me, but if I do this, a lot of the modern levers are kicking their, kind of flaring it out, their blade like that, and in a way that can be good, but when I notice when I ride, I don't need that. I just actually, with these levers anyway, I just need the blade to be vertical. I don't need it to be kicked out. In fact, on some bikes with a flared drop, like a dirt drop or something, I've had to take like the Tektro levers, and I've had to flip the blades from one body to the other so that the flare goes the opposite way, because it can be hard to actually reach around the blade lever when not only the bar is flared, but then the lever is flared more, and so it makes it kind of awkward. So I'd have to switch the lever blades and then lever them, angle them down so that the finger could actually access the lever blade more ergonomically. So I don't know, there's just some interesting ideas. I wish I could sit in the boardrooms of a lot of the companies that are designing stuff, and oh man, it's like a thing I'd only want to do for like one day of the year, but it'd be really nice to have some input on you know, brake levers. So I'm gonna go in for like 5 more minutes here, and while since I've done I did a terrible job of actually promoting this. This is just gonna turn into a you know, bike talk. Bike talk is like a radio show. But I had a friend named Nick, and my friend Brian on here will remember he worked at TRP, and one of the most ergonomic brake levers I've ever felt is the TRP Hilux. And I know this isn't the lever for everybody, but for myself, I have a very wide palm. Let's see, it's like 4 inches wide, my palm. So those levers were extremely comfortable. And one of the differences that was designed into those levers was, instead of just being flat across here, it was longer, but it also had, I think, a slight arch to here, to the lever. And so when you put the lever in your hand, it just felt like it was well, it was a match. So, and it made you really go, wow, levers aren't really designed this way. And I don't know what levers are designed around, like whose hands are they talking about. But I'm a very I'd say I'm a very, very tactilely sensitive person. I was a massage therapist for a little while too, so um, my sensitivity brought me to that profession, but that profession also sort of um, made me very aware of ergonomics, body mechanics, but also just like the nuances and subtleties in our hands. And so, yeah, I don't know, that lever. The thing is, it's for hydraulics, and it doesn't have any mechanical shifting mechanisms inside, which I think probably lent to why it was able to be shaped so nicely. And I know I actually had it a few years ago on my Velo Orange Polyvalent, and we sold a lot of things. And just because we needed to make rent more than we needed to have cool bikes, which is probably why I like to play with vintage and 90s parts, is because just sinking a ton of money into stuff that is really just for play, it can be really it can take a lot of your time. So I sold those, but that was definitely it was definitely enlightening, and I wish I could still play with those shifters today. But ultimately I didn't want I like integrated shifting, and I didn't want electronic, so that was the only way you were going to get it with that lever. So I skipped out on the Hilux, but who knows, maybe in the future I'll get some blips, like some SRAM blips or something. No, I'm not going to do that. I still think I'd probably rather ride bar end shifters, but who knows, people change, seasons change. So I'm going to sign off here in a minute. Maybe I'll catch you on the next Tuesday. I'm just going to call this like, hey, Tech Tuesdays. Tech Tuesdays with Tito Omar. Hope you have a good day, guys, and maybe we'll talk about some of your stuff hopefully next week. So adios, amigos.